Welcome to Game of Books with Cathi in South Dakota.
That's me, and Christie in South Florida.
That's me. We're two newbie writers sharing our take on wine, food, and mystery books.
And the authors who write them. Join us for the fun. Welcome, everyone, to our Killer Season 2 last episode of 2019.
Woo! I can't believe it. It's been quite a ride, and since we started this podcast just over a year ago.
I can't believe it. Our first episode came out November 9th, 2018.
Oh my gosh. And now, 45 episodes later, I can honestly say that we've shared a lot of wine, mystery books.
I was just thinking that.
And interesting conversations. I know.
I can't believe that.
Can you believe it's 45?
Episodes.
I just can't believe it's 45.
No.
Yeah.
No, I'm very surprised by that.
I know.
Not to mention all the fun times when we get together in person and all of the incredibly successful and wonderful authors we've gotten to know.
Yes, it has been an amazing journey, I have to say, of learning and growing as a writer and as a podcaster.
Oh, for sure. And, of course, I am a very optimistic person, but I really believe the best is yet to come.
Yes, I agree. I'll go for that. And before we get on to the rest of our podcast, let's recap some of this journey. So I would suggest we start with the wine.
Let me guess. Start with the wine. Always a good place to start.
So you can choose what maybe your favorite wine was and what episode it came from.
Okay, so when you had mentioned that to me, I knew exactly what I was going to pick right away.
Mm-hmm.
So I picked the wine that we shared with Alexia Gordon, which was the Apothic Inferno.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember this?
Yes. And you know what? That was, I do remember that one. That was a close second for me, I think.
Yeah. And, the reason I think I thought of it right away for a couple of reasons. One, the wine was delicious, but it was kind of a challenge because Alexia she prefers whiskey over wine. And so we wanted to try to find a good fit. And that was a red blend aged in a whiskey barrel. And Alexia approved, I will say that. But it was a challenge, And the second reason is that it was at Sleuthfest. It was our first kind of group of live podcasts, and Alexia was lovely, and it was really fun to talk to her. So that's my most memorable, that it came to me right away.
Yes. And like I said, I did think of that, and I did think along the same lines as you because I chose a wine from that same night. And mine was...
Did you really?
Yes. Mine was the Chateau du Camarsac Bordeaux. That was the one we had with T Jefferson Parker.
Oh, yes.
It was, Corks and Conversation number 7 in season 1. And I remembered that wine. When we asked the authors what kind of wine they liked, that's how we knew Alexia liked whiskey.
Right.
He said, "Oh, I like a cheap Bordeaux." So that's what we got. And the one we chose was like highly rated, but it was still under $20. And it was really good. And I've gotten it since
It was
then
really good.
because it's just a good all-around wine, like a table wine. It's not...
Yeah.
And I know he liked it. You remember
He
him
did like it,
and his wife had
I
some,
do.
and then when they left, we're like, "Here, take the bottle," and they're like, "Okay."
Well, because we had 2 more podcasts to do.
I know, true, but that was
we drank a lot of wine that night, but that was really fun, and he was so nice and such a pleasant guy.
Yeah.
And just has such a wonderful career, and he's so inspiring to new writers, and his wife was lovely. It was just all around a great experience.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, well, we obviously can't forget about the food.
Oh, no.
I mean, the wine's great, but the food's been really fun too.
Yes.
And even though we can't eat it always during our podcast, because that would be a whole other problem. Yeah, I know. I think our sound editor would lose his mind if we were eating things. But we have had some great recipes that we've talked about, and I know we both have tried after the episodes. Right away for me, episode 7 of season 2 comes to mind.
Oh, yes.
When we talked to the guys from the great website How to Feed a Loon, Chris and Wesley.
Yeah.
we've been together for 30 years, so I've cooked a lot of meals for him, and he's cooked one or two for me. But so Chris actually, he made this salad. It was a grilled shrimp and black bean salad one day, and decided to just take a picture of it. And he took a picture, and all of a sudden, all these people on Facebook were like, "Why don't you start a food blog?" And
well, it
was one of those things. It was just like, on Facebook, sometimes you get like that immediate gratification, where like everyone was like, "Oh my God, that looks amazing!" I want the recipe. So then I posted something else a little later, like the next week, and got the same reaction. So it got me thinking, well, maybe I'll start a food blog just for the fun of it. And so he started, coming up with recipes, and then I started to learn how to take pictures to get better photography.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it really did just start out as a hobby for myself. And I think another thing that, I don't know, seemed to get people's attention was the name was kind of unusual. And then when they found out what it meant, they got the humor.
Mm-hmm.
And, we've learned people love good food, and they love some humor. And so that was the long way of telling you.
Well, it sounds right up our alley, because we do love food and we do love humor. So there you go.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are that way. I mean, we get some people say, okay, get to the point, and we've kind of refined our style a little bit over the years, because they're, a lot of people, they do. They find us because they're looking for a recipe for something.
Mm-hmm.
And then they enjoy our banter and us just being ourselves. But a lot of times you're like, I love you guys, but can you get to the point a little quicker? So, we've tried to find the right medium. So you have those special YouTube subscribers that like to comment saying, start at minute 25 to get to the recipe.
Well, when Cathi and I get a little long-winded, we just tell our sound editor to cut some of it out.
Perfect.
That was fun for sure. But you know me, I have to harken back to my food choice.
Oh, no.
In episode 2 of our first season, when I talked about Silence of the Lambs. And then in season 2, episode 5, when we discussed Neon Prey. Remember?
I cannot. Yes, I do.
Both were cannibal killers, okay?
Oh. I think there's something about this, because your novel has some relation to this. I'm just saying. I think you might need to revisit.
I don't know.
The cannibal killer again. I'm just saying.
So he's a cannibal.
So there it is. That's it. Christy just let it
so
out. That's
there
what it
is. Well, you find out on page 10 or something like that. Page 15. No. So, it's probably even in the description of the book, like the cannibal guy. When that doesn't tell you everything except for, hello, he's a cannibal. He's eating. and so I was like, okay, I'm going to have to research cannibals a little, because, if we're having beef, because...
Oh my God, you're just enjoying this. Probably a little too much. I'm just thinking maybe a little too much enjoyment.
I know. And it's funny too, because then in my research, I'm like going, well, I wonder if they talk about like how to cook humans, because maybe I should use that recipe.
Okay. Again, you're making a beef tenderloin from a cow. Is that correct?
I am.
Okay.
But,
I just wanted to clarify.
I don't know who's looking at my search engine, my Google search.
Oh.
Hopefully I'm not red flagged anywhere, but okay. So I did adjust it to non-human meat for our book club ideas for Neon Prey. I just have to say.
Okay. Speaking of adjusting, remember how we each had a different book that we talked about in the beginning of our podcast?
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. And we were so nervous on the first one. We just jumped right in.
Well, you were much more brave than I was, for sure. I couldn't even lean into the microphone.
Well, we just didn't know, and we were nervous, and I'm sure you could hear it in our voices.
Yeah. All right. I think we should take another sip of wine. Because I'm dying to hear about your food and mystery thing. And cheers.
Oh.
Ooh.
I really like that little wine.
I do too. And while you're talking, I can sip more. Although I have to be moderation.
Yeah, you have to go next. Tell me yours. Okay, so when you had initially said to me this great idea of we love talking about mysteries, we love talking about wine and food, let's combine it. The first book I thought of was actually first books I thought of was from Daniel Silva. You know, he's one of my favorite authors.
I know.
We've come a long way, that's for sure. Remember when we first decided to interview authors at all?
Yes.
And our first Corks and Conversation was with Cindy Callaghan, who was so fun to talk to. Mm-hmm. She was so great, and she is doing wonderful things. She's an award-winning author of a middle grade series that's on Amazon, I believe, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an original TV series called Just Add Magic, I think.
Yeah.
I decided that I was going to need to make changes at some point. I didn't know exactly what they were, but my health was suffering, and I was constantly stressed out and grouchy because I was just working so much. And that's when I started writing more seriously. And I did start. I started a corporate thriller that backdrops the pharmaceutical industry.
Perfect.
which is a book I still have, and it's still in my trunk, and you'll hear me refer to my trunk probably a lot.
What are those, the books that you haven't published yet?
That's correct. Yeah, I have several of them.
Oh, okay.
So in the midst of doing that, my oldest daughter, who was then probably about 8 years old, and her friends were over my house cooking in my kitchen. And I was just in awe of how cute they were and how much fun they have. Mm-hmm. And wouldn't it be awesome if they had like a cooking club? That'd be great. And then what if it was a secret cooking club?
Oh, nice.
And that was the germ of what became Kelly Quinn's Secret Cooking Club, the book that was then published as Just Add Magic. So,
that's great.
I worked on the draft like manically. I just could not get the idea out of my head, and I finished a first draft in maybe like 2 months, and then went on to edit it for a very long time.
Isn't that always the case?
And eventually then secured a literary agent, and the literary agent, after asking me to edit it, then sold it to Simon & Schuster's children's imprint, Aladdin. So that was my road to publication.
Oh, that's so exciting.
I love that you started with a need, like a need, and then it led to passion, and then your daughters. I just think that's so great.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Again, we had jumped right in, and I was so glad she was such a professional.
Yeah. And, I remember we did that one together, and that helped a lot because I was really terrified.
I know. Sitting at the table, at least you and I were together anyway.
Right. And what about the Corks and Conversations that we've done at all of the conferences? We've done it at Sleuthfest and Thrillerfest.
I know. Like we talked about a little earlier, Sleuthfest is where that's where we basically cut our teeth on location interviews. We had like an audience even. And after that first night where we did 3 episodes in a row, each with a different wine, I haven't listened back, but I'm pretty sure our pronunciation probably went down the drain by the last episode.
Oh, I don't know what we were thinking there.
I know.
Thank goodness.
I know we must have been laughing a lot at least. It was so much fun.
Yeah. Well, thankfully, the authors, T Jefferson Parker, Tom Strout, and Alexia Gordon, were so generous and had so much to offer our listeners, because I don't know that we had that great of questions at that point.
Oh, come on.
But my editor and the publisher, Will Balliet, from Carolyn Graff, had gone to Hyperion, which was an ABC-owned publishing entity. And he took me to lunch one day, and he said, there's a show coming on called Castle. And I said, yeah, I saw the pilot, and I think that by that time they had aired 2 episodes, and I enjoyed the show very much. And he said, well, they want to do a gimmick, and, your writing is kind of like they have in the show. Would you consider doing a one-off, just kind of a gimmick book, as if you were Richard Castle, since he, as you know, or I assume the audience knows, played a writer in the show.
Yeah.
So I said, sure. And so
I got goosebumps. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So my sort of like crashing defeat ended up becoming kind of a lucky strike. And the book came out, and it was supposed to go straight to paperback. They actually did a hardback, and it went to number 6 on the New York Times. So
good for you.
I should have changed my name sooner.
I was just gonna say that's.
So that led to a contract for 2 more. The second one went to number 4. The third one debuted at number 1, and the rest is profit. A history, I mean.
I'm glad for both.
Yeah.
I know.
I love those books. I love the mixture of humor, which, of course, we had the privilege of hearing you talk about that today at Sleuth Fest. But it's so fun. I mean, it's just a fun series.
Wasn't expecting anything. Just needed to practice pitching this. It's like public speaking, which I'm actually terrified to do. Henry Press, they've got a slot, probably because they're early and nobody wants to get up that early. Pitched to Henry Press. The editor, Kendall Lynn, was like, no, we happen to be looking for a light paranormal cozy. It's like, I happen to have written a light paranormal cozy. And so she actually asked for my manuscript, and I sent it, and like, hey, we'd like to sign you to a contract. Daniel J. Hale also happens to be a lawyer. And somebody had said, if you get a contract, let a lawyer look at it. So he looked at it, and because he's in the industry and knows everybody, he sent it to the one who's now my agent, Paula Munier, and said, hey, this is my friend and former student who's gotten this contract. She needs an agent. Would you be willing to represent her?
Oh my goodness!
Wow.
So between luck and networking was how I landed my agent.
That's great.
And I am familiar with her because she writes at careerauthors.com.
Yes, she does write at careerauthors.com, and she actually has a book out herself, Borrowing of Bones, which is nominated for a Mary Higgins Clark Award.
Yeah.
And her agency's Talcott Notch.
Okay.
Little plug.
We're going to query.
Little plug for Paula
right now.
That's awesome. That's a great story. Yes. I mean, that's really like a Cinderella story a little bit.
Right.
After 3 years of
after
work.
a lot of work.
So Cinderella after blood, sweat, tears, and after hours, like you're putting in your day job and then doing this in the evenings.
Yes, but there was, I will admit there was some luck in
Yeah, my first book was Laguna Heat, and I started that book when I was 24, and it was published when I was 30, and during those 6 years, I rewrote the book 5 times. And I threw the whole entire 500 pages away at the end of each year, knowing as I read the book that it really wasn't good. It wasn't ready yet. And so I rewrote it 5 times, which is a lot. And the book grew immensely during the time I was doing that. And so at the end of that time, I actually finally had a manuscript that I believed in, And but it was hard. Those are the hardest years of a writer's life when you're supporting yourself one way. I was a newspaper reporter for most of that time, and then a technical editor, another paper pushing sort of job for the rest of that time. And so that left me with after work when you're tired, weekends when you want to goof off, and holidays, But I was just very, very stubborn, and I wanted to write a good book, and I knew that was what it was going to take. And I also didn't want to be a starving artist, so I always kept my day job because I wanted to have. I want to be able to have a little car and eat and stuff like
all the normal stuff.
Normal stuff, insurance, right? All that good stuff. Yeah. I remember one time driving to work. A Newport Ensign newspaper was close to my work, to my apartment, and a little car, and a little paycheck. And I remember one time you had to take the ferry across from the island where I was living to the peninsula, to the coast highway, to the newspaper. And one Friday, before I could cash my paycheck and stuff, I couldn't get to the bank, and I didn't have enough money to put gas in the car, so I had to leave the car on the peninsula and walk back to the ferry and take the ferry back across to my apartment because I was broke.
Wow.
And being broke is no fun, and I didn't like that. And so I continued to work as a reporter and a technical editor as long as I could just to pay for the basics.
Right. And really, you didn't have, most people don't have the option to say, I'm going to quit and, write my novel for,
No, I didn't. I didn't. And I didn't have a family. Think if you're a mom or a dad and you're trying to get launched in a literary career plus make some money for the household, tall order.
Yes, and we have been really lucky to continue to have great authors in season 2.
Oh my gosh. I think every one of our authors that we've talked to has been unique, but they all share really inspirational advice for new writers, which is so wonderful.
I know. I mean, I could not pick a favorite because I just loved every single one of them for maybe a slightly different reason, but they were all great.
Yeah. And I have to say, we have some really exciting authors and books lined up for 2020.
Yes. And the first one coming up is Good Girls Lie by J.T. Ellison.
I am beyond excited about that. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, following our conversation and book club kind of conversation about Good Girls Lie, the following week we're going to do a Corks and Conversation with the author herself, J.T. Ellison.
Yay! I'm so excited.
Yay! I am too. I'm really excited. I'm a big fan of hers.
I know. And so all you mysterious foodies out there, stay tuned in 2020 for some great inspiration and laughs.
Fun times ahead. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thanks to our mysterious foodies out there for listening and sharing. Check out our website, gameofbookspodcast.com, where you can find links to all we talk about. And if you subscribe to our weekly newsletter, you can get those links sent directly to you, along with any exciting updates. We are also on Facebook and Twitter under @GOBWriters.
And if you enjoyed this episode as much as we did, we would love to hear from you, and please subscribe to Game of Books wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss any of our book club ideas and Corks and Conversations with award-winning and best-selling authors.
That's all for today's episode of Game of Books Podcast, where we share food, wine, and mystery every Friday morning, just in time for the weekend.
This is Christy
and Cathi
saying thanks for listening.
Bye everybody.